Hey guys, and welcome back to the Impact Players Coaching Cohort Series, Husband Coaching. I'm your host, Warren Maynard, Executive Director of Impact Players, and I am excited to be here for our third session. Today, we're going to be diving into a topic that is crucial for a healthy marriage: romance, sex, and intimacy. I want to emphasize the physical and emotional intimacy go hand in hand, and we are here to discover how to add fuel to our spouse's fire sexually. This session is going to provide valuable insights and practical advice, so get out your workbook, get your playbook, and Matt, are you ready to talk about sex?
Oh, wow. I'm ready. Here we go.
All right. I'm thrilled to have my friend and co-host, Coach Matt Wimmer, joining us today. Welcome, Matt. I know you're as excited as I am to talk about romance, sex, and intimacy. So let's get into it. Matt, a lot of men have some pretty great stories of pre-marriage romance. We talked about it in our last session, dating our wives, what that was like before we got married, what it was like after we got married. But most men struggle to come up with a lot of romantic examples since they got married. So what are some of those ways that you've tried to bring romance into the marriage, even with diapers and bills and busy work lives and trying to get kids to practice and trying to get homework done night after night after night? Where in the world does romance fit into that equation?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a challenging question. And again, I think, like we talked about in the earlier sessions, what comes to mind, I mean, talking about put me on the spot. So I used to do a practice early on, and I've continued this in a little bit different variation. But early on, this was what I would do: is I would drive home from work, and I would pull into the driveway, and I would open up the garage door, but I didn't take the car in. I left the car out in the driveway. I would walk to the mailbox and get the mail, etc. Come back to the house, bring the car in, and then as I entered the home, there was a brick, just one brick on the house that I would hold on to, and I would pray. I would pray for my wife Cindy. I would pray for our children. I would pray that as I came through that front door, that I would be this breath of fresh air for them, and that never would I enter and all of a sudden it wouldn't be something that wasn't favorable. Yeah. And so I always would just leave work at work, or the conversations, or the deals that went sideways, whatever it was, and that was a practice that I did for all of our early years, and I think it was important in spending that time in prayer with God. That practice has continued. The variation is a little bit different, but almost the same thing, about stopping before I come in and prayerfully, that I'm this breath of fresh air coming in. And I actually think that is the first step in romance, is that are our wives still excited to see us, and hopefully overjoyed to see us when we're coming through the door. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I've done the same thing, that moment before you walk into the house is so critical, especially with the kids at a younger age. They're bouncing off the walls. Maybe she's been working part of the day and trying to manage the kids as well. And she's stressed out. She's ready for a break. You're stressed out. You're ready to just watch Sports Center and call it a day. But we're Impact Players. We don't take the easy way out. We do it the right way. So taking that moment to get your head right, get your heart right, ask God, give me the strength that I need, and then to step into that environment. I've heard it said that the greatest gift we can give our family is a non-anxious presence. So if I can come into the home with some positivity, with a smile on my face, a joke, a compliment, something positive to say about the house and what's going on in the home, all of those things can really put a little oil on the engine that can allow the fuels of romance to fire up. But then we do kind of have to take that next step, which is, okay, how do we help our wives, even when they may be frazzled and exhausted, how do we help them see and know and believe that we really cherish them, value them, and desire them in a romantic way?
I love how you use that word intentionality, and as an impact player, this verse for this session, to live with our wives in an understanding way, does take some diligence. It takes some discipline. I think of the 5 love languages, and as much as perhaps those can be dismissed in some circles, they're really, really good. And I happen to know that my wife's love languages are those words of affirmation. And so, like you say, simple compliments can go a long way. An absence of compliments, goes nowhere. I mean, so that's critical in our relationship, whether that be verbally or maybe a little written note. That can go a long way. Acts of service is her other one, and in fact, it's funny. As I was leaving the house this morning, I found out that our garbage disposal has gone out. And so I know what I'm going to be doing when I get back home is as quickly as possible trying to get that thing up and working again.
When I think romance, I think candlelight dinner and cleaning the garbage disposal.
Well, there you go. Okay, there we go. So there we go. So,
yeah.
So knowing those love languages is really important, or her love language is really important.
That's a huge factor, and we're going to talk about love languages in our session day in the workbook. Matt, it's no secret that a little romance goes a long way in the area of physical intimacy with our wives. Most men want more sexual intimacy. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
And most women want more romantic intimacy.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's just put one and one together, right? If we're not giving them the romantic intimacy that they're longing for, are we really being very smart to expect that we're going to get the sexual intimacy that we're looking for?
Well, I really love that you put those 2 and 2 together. That for us, it's the physical relationship that, quite frankly, is very meaningful. For our wives, it's the emotional relationship. I really like that. And it would go back to what we talked about in the earlier session about the 1-10. So I don't think it is a 1-1. It's funny to me how I learned once that we can literally be aroused in 10 seconds. For her, on the emotional side of things, someone once shared with me it takes 10 points. And so my 1 compared to her 10, is about right as far as those emotional deposits. I've had it be taught to me. That every time I meet that love language, then I've made a deposit. And I can easily make a withdrawal too, and a withdrawal is not 1 for 1 either. But it can't be for some kind of, desired outcome. It can't be. It has to be from the heart. and I have to recognize that her emotional, relational needs are almost like my physical relational needs, but times 10.
Yeah.
And so I think if I understand that can help me, that I'm not like, okay, I'm just going to try to get 10 points.
Right.
So that, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I mean, her need relationally far surpasses even mine physically. Hard to realize that. It's true.
I like that idea of, the points and the 10 seconds. I like to say that men, when it comes to intimacy, are like microwaves. Women are more like crock pots.
Yeah, that's good.
So if I'm wanting to have intimacy, in the evening, I've got to start preparing the dish in the morning. It's an all day type of experience for me. But Matt, talking about this idea of what women long for. They long for that romantic intimacy. Men long for that physical and that sexual intimacy. Unfortunately, many marriages get attacked by the temptations of infidelity and unfaithfulness. Men often get seduced by sexual temptation, lust and porn or an illicit sexual relationship. Women often get seduced by romantic temptation. Trashy romance novels, TV shows, or an illicit romantic relationship. And the Bible talks about this in Proverbs 5, where we see a warning, a command, and a promise. The warning is, do not be tempted by a forbidden woman. The command is, be intoxicated by the love of your wife. And the promise is, let your fountain be blessed, which we talked a little bit about last week. So, Matt, what wisdom would you offer to men who are struggling with sexual temptation or feeling sexually distant from their wives? Because that can be a dangerous place. You long for sexual intimacy with your wife, you're not getting it, and that can make many men very vulnerable. So what advice or wisdom would you give to a man in that type of situation?
Yeah, just the other day I was reading in the playbook about that if my eye, causes me to sin, I'm supposed to gouge it out. And, what does that mean practically? And so, today it is so easy to be, whether that be on a form of social media or, it's so easy to have those images take us down a path that won't be healthy in our marriage relationship. So, I think in those examples, just the other day, there was a social media application on my phone, and there was a picture of a woman that came up in a bikini, and then followed by 2 pictures of women in lingerie. And I just deleted the social media application because I sat there and I thought, man, if this is going to continue to come at me, then I'm not going to be honoring my bride, and if she walks in as I'm viewing this, that's not going to honor. She's not going to feel good about herself. So so I think we have to, as impact players, sometimes take those steps. And again, you can expand on that. I've even changed positions, in working environments where I knew, this could potentially not go down a good path. So, I think we have to literally gouge the eye out if that's what's required. So.
Yeah, and I love that verse, and there might be some men that are kind of thinking to themselves, man, he deleted the app just because he saw a girl in a bikini or a couple girls in lingerie, but it's because you love and you value your wife so much. You care about her feelings, you care about keeping the fires of your relationship with her strong, and obviously you care about the Lord and living for him as well, that you're willing to take a quote unquote extreme measure in order to protect that area of your life. And I think that that's something that, again, when we talk about what does it mean to be an impact player, that's a perfect example, is being willing to take those extreme measures in order to protect the things that matter most to you.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I can think about a couple times over the course of the last 25 years of marriage with my wife where I've been in a work situation, a ministry situation, where my wife has said, hey, I'm a little concerned about the way that this woman is relating with you. Now, she wasn't losing her mind or anything like that. It was very, calm and very respectful. But I could have gotten really defensive and been like, oh, you're making a mountain out of a molehill, or, you're seeing things that aren't really there. But I took extreme measures. And I said, okay, I hear you. I value the way that this relationship is making you feel right now. And as a result, I'm going to do what is right and appropriate to distance myself in that way, or to provide some boundaries and some safe checks to make sure that we don't end up in a situation that we both end up regretting. And so I think those are the kind of things that oftentimes, men, we can kind of think too highly of ourselves and think, oh, this would never happen to me. I would never be that husband that has an affair or gets caught in pornography or something like that. But it's those little decisions that can really either promote the romance and the sex and the intimacy in our marriage, or that nothing takes away those three things more quickly than broken trust. So the scripture says, husbands, in the same way, treat your wives with consideration as a delicate vessel and with honor as fellow heirs of the gracious gift of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. 1 Peter 3:7. Matt, how does that verse inspire you as a husband to care for your wife, particularly as we think about today's theme?
Well, that word honor really resonates for me. And I recognize that in my relationship, as her husband, that I'm either going to take care of her as a delicate flower, or potentially destroy what God designed into something that's not as beautiful. And so I love that word honor, and continuing to seek to build her up, to praise her, to help her really come into her own. Maybe that's sometimes encouraging her towards things that God's putting on her heart. So it comes in a lot of different ways. But I like that word a lot, honor, and my role in helping her grow.
That's great. I love that. And the word that really sticks out to me is consideration, or just being considerate of my wife. And, again, let's be real. Like, there are many times, like more than I have fingers on my hand, that I've said, I want sex. And it was not going to happen. She was not in a place where that was the considerate thing for me to put my fist down and say, you owe me this, or I deserve this, or I need this. That's not being considerate. Conversely, there are times where I've been exhausted, I've been wiped out, and I get home and all I want to do is just vegetate. But the considerate thing is to come in and to say, hey, tell me about your day. And it may be that she's got some things that are heavy on her heart that she needs to share. But as we can be considerate of our wives, that really does, it's kind of like it creates a mosaic of pieces that individually may not amount to much, but when you put them together, it can create a beautiful picture of intimacy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really like, again, what this theme scripture, talks about, that in a lot of women bristle at the fact that it calls them as the weaker partner, and in the relationship. And yet, I think as husbands, again, we can take, in a healthy way, great pride in that fact that God has put us in that place relationally to meet her needs, because I love how this theme verse ends, because she's a fellow heir, that we're joint heirs. Yeah. And again, we're side by side. And so again, I'm helping build her up. And I think, it's important for us as men to understand. I love how you talked about that the relational emotional needs, and that we're the best person in her life to meet those needs. We know her best, and we can build up our wives, or we can tear them down. And so it's a great opportunity, I think, as far as an honorable assignment, for lack of a better word, but an honorable place, if you will, to say, okay, there are going to be times where I'm going to come in that front door, or whatever it is, exchange-wise, maybe we're meeting up at the school for a school play, and she's going to really need me. She's going to have one of those weak moments where she's going to need me to be the spiritual lead. Wow. And I'm going to get to encourage her and build her up in that moment, because we're side by side, we're joint heirs. Prayerfully, if I do that well, then she will understand. And I think this is important as husbands to communicate to our wives. When she meets our needs physically, it builds our confidence. I think it's okay that I joke with this, but when Cindy and I have intimacy together, I always joke the next morning and say, I'm going to go climb a mountain. Yeah. I'm going to go swim the sea. And the point of it is, my confidence is so high right now. Right. Because of the time we spent together physically, intimately, that I'm ready now to go scale the mountain. Right. So, and I think that's important for women to understand, and us as husbands to share that with our wives, that's what physical relationships, the physical relationship of the whole marriage relationship, like you talked about, that's why that's so important for us. It builds our confidence. So.
That's a beautiful thing, and I want to challenge men. I've never thought about it in this way until you said what you just said now, Matt. But to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and to say, I am the best person to meet my wife's needs.
Yes.
And not only that, my wife is the best person to meet my needs. And honestly, it's really the only person.
Right.
So if you say that on a regular basis, that's going to cause you to step up. It's also going to prevent you from stepping out. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom on this important topic of romance, sex, and intimacy in marriage. I hope that this session has provided valuable insights and practical tools for all the men watching us online. As we conclude, I want to remind you to be prepared to share your best verse from Song of Solomon, chapter 7, using the ABC Bible study method. And don't forget to memorize our scripture memory verse, 1 Peter 3:7. Husbands, in the same way, treat your wives with consideration as a delicate vessel and with honor as fellow heirs of the gracious gift of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. Let's continue to invest in our marriages and strive for a strong, more intimate relationship with our wives. Guys, we will see you next time.